Does that work? Well, hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of this extravaganza, this attempt to evangelize the Diocese of St. Cloud here in Minnesota. Now, man, a lot happens every day, and so I guess that's the point of me having this. But last evening, I got off a phone call with a few parents who are in an area who they think their school is going to close. They think that the school, the local Catholic school, is going to, be on the chopping block with this All Things New initiative. And there's a lot of emotion that goes into the All Things New initiative as one, but also just like closing a school. When you close a school, you hurt a community. And I talked about it in the video yesterday, but these communities were built around schools. The school came first, and then the parish church would come afterwards. And so when you close that school that's been open for 50 or 100 or 100 and some years, that's a deep wound because there's generations of Catholics who have gone there. Now, we're going to talk about that today. I've got some things to share, but I want to present you with this idea that we don't need to close these schools. This is not funny, but it's like, you can't help but laugh or else you would cry kind of thing. These schools do not have to close by and large. They have to change models. That is true. You can't have a school, you can't have a parish school operating like a government school, because a government school, they have a blank check. They can just spend and spend and spend. Catholics have to be creative. Catholics have to have some sort of divergent thinking when it comes to how to operate schools. And my fear is that when these parishes get together, that I know they're of good heart and they're trying their best to be charitable, but that doesn't mean that they're thinking creatively. It doesn't mean that they even want to keep these schools open. When I go out there and when I talk to priests, and I'm just going to be open and honest about this, but when I talk to priests, I never hear them. I'm trying to think. I want to make sure. I don't know if I've ever heard a priest talk about fighting to keep schools open. I've never heard of a priest fighting to keep parishes open. Now, I could be wrong about that, and there could be priests out there who are like, who want to keep these schools open or want to keep these parishes open. But I've never heard that openly in public or private talked about. I've never heard them start from the point where, okay, we need to keep these schools open. Okay, we need to keep this parish open. I've never heard them start there. They always say, oh, it's such a burden. I'm overwhelmed. I've got all these schools and all these parishes, and I can't get around to all of them. And that's fine because it's true. Like, I do think, in my ACC, we've got, 3 priests, and there's probably 3 priests and like 5 parishes, and how do you do mass at all of those? So I'm not saying this because I'm trying to, like, what am I trying to say? It's a tough thing. What I'm really trying to do is not get in trouble. And that's the unfortunate thing, right? We're unable to speak the truth because we don't want to get in trouble. And I've been in trouble as far as I've had, people look down upon me and what I'm trying to do to keep schools open, to keep parishes open, simply because I'm looking back at history and I'm looking at the church and I'm saying, look, guys, like, these people wanted schools to educate the children. Father Francis Xavier Pierce said, come to this part of the world. This is going to be the best place to raise a family. We'll have all of your spiritual needs taken care of. We'll open the schools. We'll open the parishes so that you have those sacraments available, that you have the ability to raise your kids Catholic. We need to bring in Benedictines. Let's go bring in the Benedictines, or let's go bring in the Franciscans, or let's do whatever it takes. That's the thing. Let's do whatever it takes to give our kids a Catholic education. That's not the point. That's not the place of starting that I hear from our leadership. And now our leadership extends both to the people that are on like the ACC planning committees, or it goes all the way up to the bishop and all the way back down. Like, do we even want these institutions to stay open? I say yes. I say yes, we want these institutions to stay open. Absolutely. I want a Catholic church and a Catholic school on every street corner in St. Cloud just because, not just because, but because we want everyone to be Catholic, don't we? Don't we want everyone to be Catholic? It's so hard to get people to say that, though. It's so hard to get people to say that we need more Catholic churches. We need more Catholic schools. Now, let's just back up a second. I said I look in history, and I see that we come from a place where we wanted those things. In the late 1800s, there was a council, the Council of Baltimore, the third plenary council of Baltimore, where the bishops got together, and they said that you had to provide an education. Each bishop had to provide a Catholic education for everyone, all the Catholics in their area, in their geographical area. What happened to that? What happened to that? What happened to that spirit, that heart that said we're going to provide this education for everyone? Now, back then, they were just upset that, Catholics weren't getting hired. There was anti-Catholic prejudice. You go to school and you'd read from a Protestant Bible. You go to a public school and you read from a Protestant Bible. And the Catholic Church was like, nope, we're not, nope. Every bishop needs to provide a free education for the children of their diocese. And today we don't see that spirit. Where did that spirit go? We hear so much about the spirit of Vatican II. We hear so little about the spirit of the Baltimore councils of the late 1800s. They're plenary councils. They're not ecumenical councils or anything. But I don't care. Like, the heart is there. And you might say, oh, Ryan, that's a time gone by. And we had nuns back then. We had nuns, and we could just oppress them with teaching our children. And so that's what we did. And now we don't have the ability to oppress anybody with the labor of teaching our children. So we can no longer have Catholic schools. That is such a horrible mindset. It's wrong. And it's wrong. And here's what I mean by it's wrong. And I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but this is all going to come together here real shortly. It's wrong because now we have technology. We don't need nuns anymore because we have technology. One of the great uses of artificial intelligence is to use it in education to take the burden off of teachers, but to still provide a remarkable education for children. We don't need nuns. We just need the creativity to use technology and our limitations in a way that can go to where we want to go, which is, I think, should be to educate everyone in the diocese, have something special about Catholic education where people want to come, right, instead of just not going or not being able to afford to go. I'm reading a book. It's a biography of Mother Frances Xavier Cabrini, and she illustrates this. This book is called Too Small a World. All right, now in this book on page 142 and 143 of this copy, here, we see the zeal that we ought to have. So it's Mother Cabrini, she's this, if you're not familiar with her story, she's an Italian nun who gets sent to the United States to minister and care for the Italian immigrants that are there. And she gets sent there by Pope Leo XIII. And she lands on the streets, and she doesn't have anything except a few sisters of her religious order. And she gets to work right away. And she doesn't say, oh, I'm going to start a school, or oh, I'm going to start an orphanage, or oh, I'm going to start a hospital. She looks at the people and she sees what they need. And then she says, let's start a school, or let's start an orphanage, or let's start a hospital. In this particular circumstance, it's a school. So she gets to New York City. They need a school. And so what does she do? She starts a school. And it says here, things weren't ready when they were supposed to be ready, but she just started anyway. It says, without waiting for a school to be ready, the Francesca, and that's St. Mother Frances Xavier Cabrini, and her sisters set to work. On the very first Sunday, they were in New York. So the very first Sunday they're in this new continent, they set to work. and looking after the children during Mass, and then going there again in the afternoon to give classes in catechism. So right away, she's just like shows up, starts teaching. How can I help? Let's do this. These kids need to be educated. Let's educate them. It goes on. It says, this, however, was only the start. Before April was out, they had a day school in operation there. The church itself had to be used for this purpose. One class was conducted in the choir loft, another was held under it, a curtain dividing the rest of the church from view. A third met in a room opening off the sanctuary. There were, of course, no desks, nor could the supply of books have been adequate, but this day-by-day improvisation served to bring the sisters into contact with the little Italy of the Lower East Side of New York. Now, this is one of my favorite parts, there were great disadvantages in trying to run a school in this way. The lessons had to be frequently interrupted on account of weddings or funerals, and as the church was kept open all day for such as wished to make a visit to the Blessed Sacrament, it was hard to rivet the attention of the children upon their studies. Yet 200 children were instructed daily. That's cool. That's cool. We say, we have nowhere to educate these kids. Mother Cabrini and the priest that allowed Mother Cabrini to operate a school out of her church, right? Forgotten by this biography. But how cool of him to say, yeah, Mother Cabrini, look, these children need an education. Educate them. Go. And then she did what she felt called to do, and her sisters felt called to do. We need to recover that spirit. That's the late 1800s in America. These kids don't have an education. Now, let's fast forward to today, where in the state of Minnesota, almost 50% of the kids can't read, write, or do math at grade level. But send them to public school, or send them to a private school, right, where it's no better. Right, where the state has mandated that feminine hygiene products go into boys' bathrooms, but send your kids to school, right? Send your kids to school where there's all sorts of I don't know how to even phrase it, for censorship purposes, but shady morals on display, we'll say. But send them to school. Like, where are the shepherds that are protecting the sheep? Now, you could say, you have Catholic schools. Yeah, you have Catholic schools that are educating 4% of the kids in the diocese. Their tuitions are not free, like the Third Plenary Council of Baltimore said that they ought to be. And nobody wants to go to them that wants that if you go to them, you're going to a place that is Catholic in name only, because no school that I'm aware of in the diocese takes an oath of fidelity to the magisterium of the Catholic Church, something I've brought up to priests, to the bishop, and to the schools. And nobody cares. Now, I'm a father, and when I have to feed all of my children, I don't just get to pick and choose. I have to feed all 6 of my kids, myself and my wife. I don't just get to feed 5 of them or 4 of them or 3 of them. I have to feed them all. Right now, we're the Catholic Church in the Diocese of St. Cloud is feeding only 4% of the kids in this area. And there is a better way, but they're turning a blind eye to it. And I can say that they're turning a blind eye to it because I've presented my solution to it. But nobody does anything. Can I be upset about that? Where is my recourse, by the way? Where is the right? If this makes people upset, well, what am I supposed to do with this? I've taken this to bishops. I've taken this to priests. I've taken this to deacons. I've taken this to the Catholic schools. I've talked to the superintendent of Catholic schools. I've talked to the director of CCS. I've talked to everybody. Nobody cares. And so what are we supposed to do as lay people? Well, now we have to voice our concerns. We have to start schools on our own. And I'm running out of time, so I have to go. But in the next video, I'm just going to record right after this, I'll talk to you about my solution and about why it's very, very much able to be done. We'll look at the numbers of parishes, how much they spend on Catholic schools, and then we'll look at my model, and we'll see that everybody in this diocese could be educated for free. we'll see that in the next episode. Take care.